Welcome back to another day, another week of Political Breakfast. We are so glad that you are here and listening on WABE. I'm Lisa Rayam, and with us today is Saba filling in for Tharon Johnson, who's taking some time off, and our Republican strategist Brian Robinson here as well. So hello to both of you. Happy Monday. Did you watch the Preakness? I've been talking about and asking that, question of everybody. Not too many people were into it like I was. Were you?
Oh, we totally forgot about it.
You forgot about it? Oh
I
my
totally
goodness.
forgot about it. I did.
Oh,
Well, we do like to watch. I don't even know. I didn't know you mentioned it just now. I
it was a
oh
great race. It was a great
was it?
race. You gotta catch it on YouTube. It
Who
was.
won?
It was. Journalism won. Journalism won.
Oh, the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Was
great.
favored for Kentucky Derby and came in second, but won the Preakness. So it was pretty
Oh,
exciting. Pretty
great.
exciting.
We woke up Saturday morning because our neighborhood school does a 5K called the Brookhaven Bolt through the neighborhood, and it's like 1,000 and something people who show up for this thing. It's absolutely nuts how the community
I
comes
love the
out for it.
name Brookhaven Bolt. I love
Yes,
it.
yeah, and I do it at a speed much less than a bolt. So the Brian Bolt is not. I am not a blur in the photographs. I can promise you. But I was so tired, I went to sleep during all of that. What would have been the Preakness coverage,
Oh
and
yeah.
then I went over to Eddie's attic to watch one of the guys from the Yacht Rock Review because he was doing Beatles covers, and it was just a fantastic way to spend a Saturday evening. So really nice weekend, even though I did miss the race.
No, okay. How about you, Saba? Your weekend. You have a good one?
Oh, it was wonderful. I was telling Lily before we started, everyone in Atlanta was out. Like it was just, there was just a massive amount of people out this weekend. I accidentally stumbled upon Atlanta Streets Alive. I was out for
Oh, really?
brunch
Okay.
and just happened to be in that neighborhood. And then I don't think I've done this since I was in high school, which was, just a few years ago. But I relearned CPR. So
Oh,
if you
cool.
hear about me saving someone's life, thank the American Health Association for that.
All right.
Okay, okay. That's
Well,
something
that's
we
great
all
to
should
know.
do. Take that class. Well, it's
Yeah.
just a couple hours, right? And then you get that little
Well, this was
certificate and that card.
I didn't do the advanced version. I just did literally like there was a little dummy and I did the chest compressions and, you
If
know,
someone's choking, you can
got,
handle it. You can
yeah,
handle
got the
it.
pat on the back. Right.
Oh,
Exactly.
good. Well, you were also chatting about early voting is just what, a week or so away?
If it's a year that you're alive, there's an election if
Yeah.
you live in the state of Georgia. But the Public Service Commission election is this year, and this is the first time Georgia voters have had a say in the Public Service Commission in I think since 2020 or so.
Yeah.
And one of the so that's District 2 and District 3 for the PSC. There are 5 seats. In fact, all 5 seats right now are held by Republicans, but I think this election will be a question of if that will change or not. But the primary early voting begins next week, and you can request your absentee ballot now if you plan to be out of town for the summer.
How
Yeah.
closely are residents really watching this race?
They're not. They're not.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a danger. And I probably have a different point of view on this. I think defending the current makeup of the board is extremely important. We're making sure that we make wise investments back into our energy infrastructure, for example. Right now, I think the PSC has done a good job of navigating a period of huge growth in energy demand, a huge growth in energy cost, really globally, and people who want the PSC to make Georgia operate outside of the global energy system are dreaming. The energy cost, what the energy cost in our system is less than the national average as far as what we pay here in Georgia. And we have a reliable energy grid, which hasn't been the case across the country. You can't take it for granted. It doesn't happen by accident. So I really want to see this group reelected. And I'm concerned this year because, as Saba mentioned, and we can get into why this is, we haven't had elections in a while because of lawsuits about how we elect the PSC. They represent districts around the state, 5 districts, but everybody is elected by all Georgia voters. So we all get to vote in all 5 districts. And some liberal groups are saying that disenfranchises black voters, that makes it difficult for uh, black candidates to win. Right now, there is a black member of the PSC, Fitz Johnson. So
Who was not elected, he was appointed.
he was appointed by Governor Kemp. That's right.
Right.
And
So this will be the first time he's on the ballot.
yes, he'll be on the ballot this year. So what concerns me is going into November, the most high profile elections will be the city of Atlanta elections, which tends to drive out obviously more Democrats because there are a lot more Democrats living in the city of Atlanta than Republicans. So Republicans are going to have to be very intentional, and they need to take this very seriously. We can't lose ground on the PSC without it being meaningful. So Republicans are going to need to spend some money this year to inform voters, mobilize them, get them to the polls.
Another race, the Senate race, but one candidate who is spending money, Buddy Carter, has invested, 1.8 million already in television advertising, hoping to unseat the incumbent John Ossoff. And that's pretty early, isn't it, Brian, to do something like that?
It's extraordinarily early. And Buddy Carter is someone who owned independent pharmacies before he was a member of Congress, and apparently made a lot of money in that business at some juncture, tens of millions and perhaps over $100 million in wealth today. So he's willing to spend up to $10 million of his own funds. And I think this $2 million that he's spending now, which is, to your point, Lisa, unheard of. You just simply don't do it. I'm happy to get to the strategy that's behind it, even though, because it's very unconventional. Most political operatives are going to tell you he's just setting money on fire, right? That's going to be the conventional wisdom. And I don't know that what he's doing right now is banking votes for May of 2026. I think what he's doing right now is signaling to elites, to the donor class, to the White House, to the NRSC, I'm serious. I have money and I will spend it. I'm not going to be shy about it. Right now, what he's spending out of, I think, is his federal congressional account, which is fine because he's running for another federal office. So I think his own personal probably hasn't begun to wash through all of this. But this field is not complete. Obviously, John King, our insurance commissioner, has gotten in since Buddy announced. Buddy's sending the signal that he's here to stay. And that's going to be something important as Kemp and Trump talk about the potential consensus candidate. And we've gotten indications that Buddy's not that consensus candidate, according to the reporting that we've seen on it. I don't know the truth of it. I do not know what Kemp and Trump have talked about.
Saba, what would you say? John Ossoff sitting and waiting. I think he's amassed nearly 32 million in campaign donations.
It's going to be a very expensive Senate race. And almost every election, we are reminded of the problem of how much money is spent influencing people's vote. And to the extent that that is even actually an influence, right? I mean, it's really the political class and the donor class versus, kind of the anti-status quo. Ossoff, I think, will be fine. I mean, it's still early. Buddy Carter is a challenge for sure, but I think he's beatable for Ossoff. I think John King is also beatable, but I do think King could run an interesting campaign. He has a compelling story that I think would be of interest for folks and maybe broaden the Republican base some. But the one person I wanted to run, and I think a lot of folks wanted to run, decided not to, and that was Marjorie Taylor Greene.
How would that have mixed up the pool, do you think?
Oh, I think that would have been an 80-20 Ossoff win. I mean, slight exaggeration, but yeah, Ossoff would have, he could have won that with both hands tied behind his back.
Yeah, but overall, this is going to be a pretty expensive. This is going to be a pretty expensive race, right?
I mean, it'll be $200 million at least, I think, because Ossoff is a accomplished fundraiser. He's good at it. He is the most vulnerable Democrat up for re-election in 2026. So he's going to get national money trying to defend that seat. And Republicans see it as a big pickup opportunity if they have a candidate after the primaries who is in the pole position and has the ability to beat Ossoff if if they're 10 points out coming out of the primary, it's not going to be that competitive. Republicans might pull their punch a little bit. But if we get out of the primary and polling shows that it's a competitive race, oh my God, the spending is going to be off the chain. And that's what I think is going to happen. In Georgia, no matter who you are, you kind of start out with a floor of what, 45, 46. I mean, to get down to 45, you have to be pretty particularly awful. I mean, a breathing being is going to get 46, 47 for either major party. So that's going to be competitive no matter what, you got to think.
Mhm.
And, if all you got to get is 3 to 4 points from where you begin, then that's a pretty decent place for a challenger to an incumbent U.S. senator to be. One thing that's changed since I was growing up is Georgians, and I think maybe Americans at large, had a much better understanding at some juncture of who their U.S. senators were. They loomed a little bit larger. I grew up in South Carolina, and Strom Thurmond and Fritz Hollings were, household names. We talked about them in a way that I don't think we talk about Warnock, Ossoff, and our members of Congress. And it's because we no longer have media in DC that is assigned just to covering our delegation. At least not the way we used to. Now it's kind of like Tia Mitchell from AJC. That's about it. It used to be a lot of folks. So we don't get as much news on our members of Congress. We don't know them as well. We don't get narratives on them that humanize them the way that we might have in the past. And that is a disadvantage for Ossoff as an incumbent. And I'll say he's doing what he can with what resources are available to raise his profile, picking fights on TV a lot, picking fights in hearings, coming on Political Breakfast and, you know, brushing me off the plate a little bit, you know. He's
Naming you, yeah.
Brian. So he's trying to be this fighter that the Democrat base is demanding right now. And the smart thing to do is to fight on issues that don't alienate the middle. And he's doing that right now.
He's doing that.
Like with these health issues, like this
Mhm.
thing, this health center in Thomasville, for
Mhm.
example. I'd imagine he's not going to be out, talking about his vote on girls' sports, which again is a head scratcher. Why? Why vote no on a 70-30 issue?
I know what I want to ask you about. Since Kemp said no, Governor Kemp said no, any rumblings of what he does have his sights set on? People are still guessing. Have you heard anything out and about?
I think Brian would probably hear more than me. I mean, I've said before, I think Kemp was wise to sit out. I don't think there was any advantage for him to run for Senate. And again, if I were him, I would be stacking my coins and figuring out my play for 2028.
Absolutely. Or just stacking your coins for your own personal use for the generational wealth that you can accumulate for your family, which I think he's got a real chance to do. I mean, the guy has got not only sky high approval ratings in a swing state, he's got a national brand of having stood up in a time of challenge and done what history shows was the right decision. And I think there'll be a lot of welcoming open seats on corporate boards and maybe some paid speeches, that kind of stuff that he could do. And he's also a business guy. I could see him just going out there and investing in stuff in Georgia and staying active in those ways. He doesn't seem to be somebody who can't live without the limelight, right? When you're governor, there is a strong spotlight on you. And he doesn't mind standing in it. I mean, he doesn't avoid it, but he doesn't run to it either. And those folks tend to transition out of politics a little more easily than those who get addicted to the attention and to the praise and the bootlickers that surround you.
The power,
Yeah.
the power, right. If you will, I wanted to talk a little bit about Adriana Smith. Who is Adriana Smith? She is a pregnant woman who was declared brain dead about 3 months ago, and hospital officials are keeping her alive based on Georgia's new abortion law. And a lot of people are upset about it, including her family. Just want to know what your thoughts were on that. And I'll start with you, Saba.
It's a heartbreaking situation. It's a heartbreaking case. I feel for her family. She has a child already, I believe a 5-year-old or so. And it really, and I believe she's also married. I think even how we got to this situation shows the challenge that Black women face in the healthcare system. She went to the hospital because she was having headaches. She was pregnant.
It got
And
turned
they gave
away.
her some medicine and said, go, here's some medicine, go away. Right. And I'm hoping that there was no malice in that. And then I think literally the next day, her husband finds her in a medical crisis, and then she ends up in a coma, and now she's brain dead and pregnant.
I think the
And
determination
her,
was she had several blood clots on her brain,
right,
right? That
right,
that could
right.
have been detected, but for some reason was
Or
not.
not, right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so you have a family that, because of politics, cannot make their own medical decisions. Because of politics, they cannot determine their family's future. And that, not only for the child that they already have, but for her parents, for her husband, that is utterly heartbreaking. And when we talk about what is the role of government, this is a big one. This is one that, is the government right to say that this family cannot decide
Yeah, they don't
if
have
they
a
want
say.
to do
Yeah.
that or not? That's a real challenge. It's a moral challenge. It's a spiritual challenge. Ultimately, that is a decision that should be made by her family, not the state of Georgia.
I heard from various folks over the weekend about this particular issue from people who are avowedly pro-life, and they're like, "Why is somebody upset about saving a life of a baby?" And that's how pro-life approach this issue. And I don't know in this particular case that state law did require the hospital to keep the mother alive. The Attorney General has issued opinions that show that a case like this isn't purposefully terminating a pregnancy. So it wouldn't necessarily fall under the dictates of the heartbeat law. If there
I
is
think the families are, I think the hospitals are expecting a lawsuit regardless of the decision they make.
that, and that may be the case, and that's certainly a big concern and a fair concern. And if there's any lack of clarity on this issue, then it's a matter that the General Assembly can take up in January when it reconvenes and look at other cases that may have come up that provide us a, a guiding light toward ways that we can make this work better. I think Democrats are seizing on this issue to say we need to just throw the law out and have much more permissive abortion laws. So they're politicizing this right now more so than Republicans are. They're trying to make it about achieving their political goals. And that's not what Republicans are going to do next year. They're going to keep the strong pro life law on the books. Governor Kemp wouldn't allow anything but that. But I do think that there's a chance to review the impact of the law, how it's being administered, how it's being interpreted, and issue any clarity in the law that may be needed.
Yeah, I would just add just a reminder that Georgia voters writ large don't agree with the 6-week abortion ban. They agree with a ban, but completely disagree on the 6-week number. And so had this not been in the law, this family could make their own decisions, and it would be in the privacy of that hospital room, and we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it on air.
Yeah, her mother has described it as torture watching, her daughter in this predicament.
Yeah.
And we'll be in it for at least another 10 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because
she
that's
said
how
21
long that they
weeks.
have to wait.
Mhm.
Yeah. And of course, what adds to the nuance and the difficulty in navigating this is, does the baby even survive? The after all of this happens, obviously this is a traumatic event for the baby being inside a brain dead mother. So it could very much result in complications that make it difficult to sustain life. So hard, particularly when you consider how vastly expensive this is to keep alive someone who has been declared brain dead. That's something that we need to consider as well, particularly if we are expending public resources. So those are all things that are fair to discuss. But I do want to echo what Saba said. This is utterly tragic just
Hmm.
across the board. No matter where you are on the abortion issue, this is a really tough one. And
Yeah, to be in the
hearts
room
go
with
out to
that
those
family,
those families.
you can only imagine, what the days and hours are like. But
Who's
yeah,
responsible for the medical care, for the cost of the medical
for
care?
the cost, and yeah, how much is this
Yeah, I
costing?
mean that's
Right.
something that's a concern to me. I just think we're, later on this week we'll be talking about the Medicaid issue, and these sort of cases can often drive up the cost for Medicare and Medicaid, government funded health insurance, and we all bear the cost of that as taxpayers. So it's not just a healthcare decision, it's not just a moral decision. People do not like to discuss life and death in fiscal terms. It is unseemly, and we all cringe a
Hmm.
little bit.
Very uncomfortable.
But
Correct.
there is a cost to these decisions, and in public policy, we can't pretend that's not the case. Particularly as we're looking at how we make these government healthcare programs sustainable when we have a 30 plus $1 trillion debt.
Well, there's no way. There's no way the family's going to get this bill. I hope not. I hope not.
I would think they've got a pretty good lawsuit if they get a bill for it, for sure.
We'll probably be talking about this for months and
But of
maybe
course,
years to come.
the state can say, we didn't tell you to keep her alive. That they could say, we don't agree with that interpretation of the law, which the Attorney General's office has basically said that this is not necessarily a case that falls under that law. So maybe clarification in the law is what's going to be needed.
All right. Hate to end on such a downer, but it is news and people are talking about it. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it in weeks to come. Saba, as always, thank you so much for checking in. And you will be back later in the week. We're going to talk about those Medicaid cuts that are advancing in Washington and how those cuts could possibly affect Georgians here. So we're going to talk about that later in the week. So we'll chat later. Brian, Saba,
Great,
have a good one.
great to see you.
Bye, guys.